Have you ever wanted to go find a job, a new position that may not be within your company, but somewhere else, but you're worried somebody at your company will find out because maybe you live in a small town or you're in a very tight-knit industry? Both Melissa and I have experienced this in our career, and I am really excited to have Melissa share insights into how she utilized her network to almost be incognito as she found her new opportunity. Melissa, welcome to the event.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
So, Melissa, you and I both know that being in smaller towns or being in industries where everybody knows your name makes it really hard to sometimes go find a job and a position. Can you tell me what is the strategy that you think is the winning one to help people out?
I think it's funny, right? I live in London, Ontario, and people always say London's the world's biggest small town. Everybody is connected, and it's 2 degrees of separation usually. And so for me, when I knew I needed to look for something new or wanted to look for something new, and I knew that if I did, people would find out about it, I just didn't feel confident just applying, because I just didn't want my name out there in that way. And so I truly just started using my network to say, hey, I'm open to work, and then intentionally grew my network to do the same thing, and used it as a way to actually get my name out there without even looking for a job, because we also know that so many jobs aren't even posted, especially in senior level positions.
Very true, right? Like the stat I think I've recently read is that 75 to 80% of jobs are not posted. And the higher up the corporate ladder they're not posted because they, in my experience, don't want people to know that they're looking to replace somebody senior in their company. So they also want to do it in this quiet perspective.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think it's like, how do we use our network and our own skills to essentially put ourselves on those lists that aren't even public lists, is really what I've started to talk to people about. We chatted quickly about the fact that, there's this gap right now in the hiring where I hear all the time from employers that they want more staff. And I hear all the time from people looking for work that they're looking for work, and somehow they're not connecting. So I've been doing a lot more coaching around, here's how we can actually connect people together.
Yeah. Yeah, the it's so true, right? There's so many people using this old method of just giving their resume in and being like, okay, why is it not working? And then the companies or the opportunities are being missed out. So when you start this process of going, okay, I want to network, I want to put feelers out there, as I kind of call them, how do you start the connection? Like, how do you kind of position yourself or and figure out who that is you want to connect with?
So I would say a few things. I'm a big LinkedIn user, so I use LinkedIn the way that I believe it was designed to be used, which is to build your network. And so I often look at, who are some companies that I think I might be interested in working for. So I kind of start big picture, like, who are those organizations? What organizations do I think I align with from a core values perspective? What are the organizations that interest me from just size, type of organization, that side of things? And I sort of start there and find the companies, and then start to look at who's in that organization that would be a good connection for me. I often say to people, talent acquisition people are great. They're always there. And the talent acquisition people are like, they'll talk to you. It's what they do. Um, but with but they're often not the best sort of first contact, because I don't find that they're necessarily going to have the greatest, their job's to sell the company to you. I want to have a real conversation. So I try and find people in similar positions to me, or with similar experience to me, and start my conversation with them. What's it like to be in that role? What's it like to work for the organization? What do you love about it? What don't you love about it? And really start with that person who's like me, and because you tend to find that natural connection, and then go and then branch out from there.
I think that's a smart and wise idea, is to find somebody similar to you and somebody in the company. Because one of the things that you don't necessarily get clearly from an interview perspective is, what is it like to work there? Is this going to be a good fit for me? Or is this like a company that is shiny on the outside, but all the employees are really not happy people?
100%. And at the heart of everything I do, employee engagement is what my passion is. Like I want people to not hate their lives when they go to work. And so to me, that's the most important conversation is what's a day in your life like? How things as you move more senior in your career, there are certain things that become more important to you. So for me, I like to understand things like the meeting culture, which
Mhm.
because I don't like to sit in meetings all day long. And so if it's an organization that has a lot of meetings, I know that that's not what I like to do now. So I want to understand what's the culture like? What's the communication like? How's feedback given? Like those things that I find as we become more senior in our careers are the things that are that much more important to us because they're the things that lead to job quality versus when I'm young and I'm just trying to get experience. I was willing to take a lot of stuff that I probably wouldn't do now.
It's true, right? Like the earlier you are in your career, you need to kind of go through that learning journey of what is it, how do I work well? What types of people do I work well with? And what brings me joy at work? And where am I frustrated at work and should stay out of those paths? So when you start to connect, one of the areas that I know you work well in is the area of emotional intelligence. I think this is a really key skill for people who are looking to connect and build those relationships. So how can one utilize emotional intelligence to build that relationship to start this process?
So I believe emotional intelligence is the foundation of everything we do. And I've also spent the majority of my career in sales. And so I look at everything I do as a sales process, truly. But I think when we think about emotional intelligence, the foundation of it is self awareness. So know yourself. Are you somebody who can talk too much? Are you somebody who isn't necessarily the best listener all the time? Are you somebody who could be really shy? Are you somebody who feels rejected easily? And start to think about your own self before you do anything else, because when we're good at knowing ourselves, then we're way better at connecting with other people. So I think that initial foundation of what do I know about me to make this go well is key. And then go into it with really strong relationship management, right? How active listening. Focus more on them than on yourself. Use it as a conversation to learn about them. I do find I put myself out there as somebody who's willing to connect with people and help people and do those things. So I have a lot of people come to me and say, "Hey, can you introduce me to so and so?" Or, "Hey, can we go for a coffee?" I will always prioritize the people who seem to be respectful of my time, or the people who ask me about me first, or who don't seem to just assume that this is all going to be given to them. So it's and that for me is, I look at everything as reciprocal. It should be a relationship. If I'm going to spend my time, I want to build a relationship with you. And I think we have to go into these conversations looking at it as a relationship in a long term, because there won't necessarily be a job today. The job might be in 2 years. So it's how do I build a relationship with somebody that will pay off for me down the road? And we do that by essentially building a friendship.
Yeah. It makes me think of something that Jack Canfield taught me. And he's like, too many people talk about 50-50 in a relationship. He's like, no, you got to be 100% in. Like,
Yeah.
if you are going, you want to invest in this relationship, and then you get the reciprocation back, right? This is when these people will talk about you, will be like, hey, I know someone, because you've invested in that person, right? And that's really the benefit of you having a background in sales as well. And our very first conversation that kicked off this whole series was on somebody who was from a sales position and talking about that. So how can you, knowing emotional intelligence, knowing sales, what are some of the techniques that you get from sales or that you have developed from that perspective that help you become a better listener or a better interactor to find out what is it that I can offer as part of
Yeah,
this connection?
for sure. I think everything that I do starts with how can I help them?
Mm.
And that was how I sold. It's always been the foundation of my sales approach is how can I help them? And so that's how I go into the conversation is I go in to learn about them. I typically have I know where I want to get to as a good as a I want to get to the close. I want to get the yes. I want to get the referral. So I know that's where
Exactly.
I'm trying to get to. Um, but it's like, how do I actually get there? Well, I get there by having a great conversation. So I want to understand what was the path you took to get to this current role? Was it a straight line? Are you somebody who's gone back to school 3 times? How'd you end up at this company? Total curiosity. I say all the time, curiosity is an underused superpower that those who are curious will always go farther because curiosity just allows you to ask questions and try and
Mm.
understand. And if you go into things curiously, you naturally are going to try and learn more about somebody. And
Yeah.
so I really go into the conversations with that from that point of curiosity. And and then I almost always in those conversations will find something. I'll hear something about something they need or something they're interested in, or and either find a common ground that we both like and can connect on, or know somebody who I should connect them with. And so I look at it as my first step in this relationship is to give before I ever have earned a right to ask.
Mm.
And that to me is the foundation of all of this is I don't have the right to ask for something if I haven't given something first. And that's how I sold and that's how I now build relationships is I build a relationship first. I bring value to that person before I ever ask to get any value back.
And that is so important because so many people, and I've sat down with people I've interviewed a lot of people in my life who come in with this me attitude. And for me, it's like, here's what I've done that can help you move the company better, right? Like it's being able to position that back into it. One of the things that I find is really useful, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on this, is I find if I'm going in and somebody gives me a piece of advice
Mhm.
that says, you know what, read this book or do this thing, then for me, it's like, okay, I got to go do that thing and go try it out and then give feedback back to the person. Because when somebody takes advice from me and goes to do it, I'm more apt to be like, okay, this person's really interested, really invested in that feedback.
Definitely. I tell a story pretty regularly about a young woman who actually now works for me. When she's a newcomer to Canada, and when she first moved here and was looking for work, I got introduced to her, and I got asked, could you introduce her around? She's trying to find work, and of course, I had a call with her, and she was fantastic, like just great energy, so passionate. And I said, hey, if you want to come to a networking event with me. I'll take you with me. I'll introduce you to people. Uh, Nobody ever takes me up on that, like ever. To this day, I tell this story now, and nobody takes me up on it. But she said, "Yes, I'll come," and I said, "Fantastic." And a month later, we met at a networking event, and I walked her around and introduced her to people the whole time we were there. And she's like, here, meet her. She's looking for work. Here, meet her. She's looking for work. And she left that networking event with a job. And coincidentally, fast forward to a year later, I actually took over the position for her hiring manager, and now she reports to me. Um, and so it kind of came full circle, ironically. But she to this day is the only person who's ever said yes to me on that. And I walked her around, and we got her a job that day.
Yeah, and when you connect, right? People want to give you advice. They want to give you their ideas. And so the more you're open to connecting using emotional intelligence, connecting versus like listening and
Hmm.
truly paying attention and honoring what that person is offering you by their time, I think success can happen in moving you in your career.
100%. And we can't understate how valuable people's time is.
Mhm.
As in today's world, time is probably the biggest resource that any of us can give up to somebody. And especially an executive, if you have an executive who gives you their time, recognize the value in that because it's huge. And if they give you advice, show that you're going to follow through on that advice. Because
Mhm.
like whether there's somebody who would be a superior to you and they might be your actual hiring manager, show them that you're gonna this is how I execute. But if they're going to be a peer, they're also looking for a good coworker, and
Yeah.
so show them you're a good team player. Show them you're a good coworker.
Oh my gosh. Melissa, this has been such a wonderful conversation. And I look forward to more of these conversations with you because we only live an hour apart, which is
It's
really
true.
cool. Um, what I understand is you have an offer to help people understand their emotional intelligence. Do you mind taking a moment and sharing what that is?
Definitely. So like I said, emotional intelligence is sort of the foundation of everything that I do. And so whether it's sales, whether it's team building, communication, all of those things, inclusion at work. So it's a quick guide to emotional intelligence. It's kind of the basics. It's high level. If it's a new topic for you, it'll just give you a good oversight. If it's not a new topic for you, it'll give you a good just reminder and resource, or a really good tool to share with other team members who might not know about it yet. Because as much as it's a topic I feel like we've probably talked about for a long time in our training, I feel like it's still pretty new to a lot of people in that are out there. So it's a 10-page e-guide that sort of gives you the foundation of it.
And that link is below. And here's a little tip for everybody and why this is worth knowing is people with emotional intelligence on average make $39,000 more than their coworkers in the same level. So, if you're looking for a raise and not necessarily just even the promotion, become more emotionally intelligent and I would recommend starting with Melissa's free gift. Link is below. Melissa, thank you very much for your time today and all this great advice and insight to help people network better.
Thank you for having me.